to MMA events actually. Okay. Hey, Mon, ready to go? Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very, very warm welcome to another edition of our evening program. We are indeed privileged and honored to bring you continuous, seamless program from morning till late in the evenings every day, starting with the quiz every morning. And I'm delighted. We got some excellent feedback from all the participants. They really enjoy the quiz because not only we give the answer, then we give the marks also. I think the average score is almost 50-60%. That clearly indicate the participants and the members of MMA are so intellectual in terms of solving most of the quiz, and which are really a brain twister. And before we have an excellent panel this evening on a very, very important subject. Before that, I'll tell you what's exactly happening in next two important programs, though the number of programs are happening. I want to tell you that our programs are also finalized till July and all been placed on our website. Please have a look at them so that you don't miss out them, because there's so many mails coming. Sometime you may miss it in your inbox. We are doing a program with CFI, Coaching Foundation of India. The very, very important theme, culture, leadership, and the pandemic, actually. What we have, again, an outstanding panel. We have Kavita Singh, Chief Human Resource Officer, United Breweries, and Judith Das is a CHRO of ICICI Prudential, and M.N. Rao, again, Group Head HR of L&T Hydrocarbon. There are three panelists, and they'll be moderated by Vasanthi Srinivasan, is a professor of OB, Organizational Behavior HR, from IIM Bangalore. These are the panel for that day on 24th of May. Then again on 26th of May, again a very interesting event as a part of our endeavor to promote entrepreneurship. This time we are promoting entrepreneurship. We're also telling how the entrepreneurship can promote himself financially very well. The art of happy exit, how successful entrepreneurs sell their businesses. This is a topic which we are going to discuss. And the person who is going to be talking, and we are going to discuss on the theme of the book written by Dr. Sri Krishna, is a professor from Northeastern University of USA. And we also have an excellent panel, Dr. Charu Ramanathan. She's a co-founder and CEO of Vital Exchange USA. And these are people who have done extremely good work and also experienced actually how they could really create an entrepreneurship and how they could sell it, and how you can really encash yourself when you need it. And it's I come across a lot of entrepreneurship, and during a number of events, they are so emotionally connected with your the venture which you have started. They don't even think of even selling their organization, but the things change over a period now. Anyway, you come and listen, and it will be moderated by our own dear friend Chandu Nair, entrepreneur. You all know Chandu very well. And this is all the number of events, what's happening. And on the 5th of June, we are doing celebrating World Environment Day. So we've got some outstanding program to know that how you can learn something from nature to protect your environment and yourself. Again, we have some outstanding panelists to come and speak. So please do join for all these events and enrich yourself. And if you missed it, not to worry, just log into our website. All the recordings are available on our website, YouTube, Facebook, and a number of other social media portals. Coming to today's event, dear friend Prakash written some lovely book, The Spiritual CEO. When I got to know that he had written a book, I could connect with him and spoke, because this is a subject which is very, very relevant today. And the way the CEOs are really struggling, many of the organizations, not only from the organizational issue, there are also other issues which is happening. The pandemic also impacted severely, not only that their employees, I see a number of CEOs also got impacted and trying to come out. Some of them are not coming out, very sad, so sadly. So to discuss on this subject presently is going to be an outstanding thing. And we got again an outstanding panelist here. We have besides Prakash, we have Ambi, Parameswaran, and also Anil, Kumar. Now, the theme, as you all said, the spiritual CEO. The program for this evening is we'll have an official launch of the book for the benefit of our readers. Thereafter, I will introduce all the three panelists, including the author. Then Ambi will lead the conversation with other two, and all the three gentlemen are outstanding when I introduce the profile. The profile has already been shared with you along with the invitation detailed profile. I'll briefly share with you their profile. Now, let me have the privilege of introducing Mr. Prakash. Prakash is the author of the book, and Prakash is not new to MMA, and we've done some phenomenal events along with Prakash in MMA. And is CEO of Sea Change India. He's nationally acclaimed author, coach, and personally I know him for the last so many years of my joining MMA over the last 14 years, and he's been a great source of support to MMA. and very, very knowledgeable person and a thought leader. And he does some phenomenal work in whichever field where he is sitting, because I know we did some unique program with him in MMA, 24 hours non-stop skill program. We started at 10 o'clock in the morning, finished the next day 9 o'clock, 24 hours. That's a record still we have, which we have done along with Prakash, and he's an avid reader. I've been practicing heartfulness meditation since 1992, and many of you, if you have given a chance, you must practice this. I've done it personally, visited the Heartfulness Institute and learned this technique, which is very, very good, provided practice it. And he's also we are privileged to work with some great human beings, great leaders. And he's one, and he's secretary to Daji. He's a global guide and president of Heartfulness Institute. Prakash, thank you for choosing MMA to come and discuss on the theme of your book. Let me have the privilege of introducing our dear friend Ambi Parameswaran. And Ambi really doesn't need an introduction to our audience, because they have met him, interacted with him so many occasions, and he has over 40 years of experience, a personal friend, and whenever we look at him, and we're always there with us. And many a time he's the one who advises MA on how to build our brand, how to call your management center, how to position yourself MMA. And he has been one of us, guide to us. That's one of the reasons we've been able to do well. And he has worked on iconic brands, so many of them, including GSK, Tropicana, Amul, TCS, any name you branded, Wipro, he is there, Tata Indigo. And he's also president of Ad Club, and he has also served on the board of governors of IIM Calcutta, and currently serves on the several corporate companies as independent director. And he is also a guest faculty at IIM Calcutta, Ahmedabad, also adjunct professor at SP Jain. And he's a distinguished alumnus award from not only from IIT Madras, but also from IIM Calcutta, and AMP graduate from Harvard Business School. Ambi, it's indeed a pleasure and privilege to have you with us. Thank you for so kindly accepting an invitation to join the panel. Let me have the privilege of introducing other distinguished guest of honor for this evening, and human whom I met in a short while. I got really impressed by what he does, and the way he communicates with you clearly shows how kind-hearted he is. Mr. Anil Kumar is the founder of and CEO of Samunati, and Anil holds a master's management from Asian Institute of Management, Manila, and is also a master. Besides all his qualifications, he has received a number of awards for the excellent work what he is doing. That award, what he got itself, is indicator of what he is doing so well. Best social entrepreneur in the global social entrepreneur and Thai impact entrepreneur in the year 2030. It is Social Entrepreneurship Startup Award in 2020. Anil also, the Task Force CI. He started the career with Canara Bank, and prior to Samunati, he is also the co-founder trustee of IFMR Trust, and Anil also volunteers in several healthcare initiatives, including Heartful Institute. Samunati is the one which is, you must know, because it's something which really helps a large number of tech companies, agri farmers, because agriculture is the backbone of our country, and somebody working with them, I know that is something. The customized financial solutions cover over 1,000 agri enterprises, which is very, very important. A great job, Mr. Anil. It's a privilege to have you with us on board. Now we have, lovely panel to have a wonderful evening. Before I hand over Mr. Prakash to speak on the book, let's formally launch the book. It's a privilege for us. The e-launch of the book, and gentlemen, this should be a proud position in your library. You'll get an opportunity. And may I request the speakers, we have a copy of the book. You can show it on the screen, Ambi and Prakash, and also Anil. Thank you so much, and congratulations to Prakash for writing this wonderful book, Spiritual CEO, and which is the privilege to forward by Davinci. And now I request Prakash to speak on the theme of the book. Thereafter, they'll lead the discussion on the theme with some interesting thought-provoking questions and thought-provoking views on the theme, and by Ambi and Anil. Over to you, Prakash.
Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. For me, the eternal young-looking hero. He looks the same how he was 18 years ago when I first met. My memories with MMA goes back way back to 1998. Many of you may not be aware, not even Mr. Vijay Kumar. I held it back as a secret from him also. 1998 was the launch of my first book that I wrote called You Too Can Sell. When the book had been released, a review was carried in the Economic Times called a multi-billion-dollar idea. And at that time, there was somebody else heading MMA, and there was a call one day evening, why don't you come over and just share the details about your book. It was the Nelson Manikam Road office, 110 Nelson Manikam Road, if I'm not mistaken. And I happened to be there, roughly about 10 distinguished guests. That was it. And we had a very nice evening, about 1.5 hours. Subsequently, several book reading sessions. Those days, there used to be book reading sessions in MMA. I used to be invited at least once a month. We used to take a book, read, go through and all that. Subsequently, a lot of events I have attended. I have taken a lot of soft skill sessions on behalf of MMA for many of the members. In 2012, as Group Captain Kumar mentioned, one of the days we happened to meet, and suddenly the thought came about, why not we do a unique management event which has never been done in Asia before. And then we got this idea of doing a 24-hour non-stop management event. So in less than one day, Vijay Kumar was kind enough to give the approval from his side and got SRM and several other partnering institutions on board. In less than about 3 weeks, we managed this event in the SRM Institute, Katanguluthu. 25 hours, just to be on the safer side, as he said, started at 9 in the morning. More than 5,000 people watched with 18 speakers, 56 topics, non-stop through the night, and about 500 students who stood there and attended the session without sleeping. It was a wonderful, really a wonderful event. And the clock comes a full cycle. 2021, the launch of my 11th book, 1, 11, both are happening right now with MMA. It's indeed a very proud moment for me. I'm happy to have Sri Ambi Parameswaran and Sri Anil Kumar along with me, and many of the distinguished guests who are watching it through Zoom and through the online channels of MMA. I connect a lot emotionally to MMA because of the long association. It is also maybe the best known management institution in India. When it comes to the book, many years back, I was impressed, rather touched deeply by the words that Gita Acharya had used, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glani Bhavati Bharata. So when I was speaking about this to somebody who knew Gita very well, he was talking about the avatars and how God comes to restore Dharma by killing people or against Dharma. But subsequently, when I was meditating over it and ruminating over it, the thought came to me that the paradigm shift has happened where it's not going to be possible for good and bad to be on two different sides. We are all a combination of good and bad. And it's not something to be annihilated where you can take an arrow or a nuclear warhead and kill people and move on with it. It's not going to happen, which will land up the entire earth getting blanked out. The thought then came through inner awakening or a call that it's not about destroying bad, it's about transforming and metamorphosizing bad. When Lord Krishna mentioned maybe that I will come back, maybe what he meant in my view was that he would manifest himself into each and every person in some way, helping them to transform and move on to metamorphosize into what we are potentially capable of becoming, divine human beings in some way. It's of course a long call, maybe a too long a shot to call, but we can surely go there. And then when the pandemic set in, a few of my colleagues and friends, we were having before the lockdown in one of the coffee shops and talking about it. So one person said, you have been talking about this passionately, why don't you write a book? Then I sort of shared with them why I chose this topic of the spiritual CEO. If you look at the world structure today, finally, it's all to a great extent, if not all, everything is driven with a commercial motive, and the commercial motives are done through organizations and corporate organizations and partly quasi-corporate organizations. You can call it as governments like the PM or the chief ministers or whoever. And these are the people who finally are capable influencing. Anybody who has understood marketing, as our marketing specialist here, Sri Ambi, would agree, instead of wanting to influence 1 lakh people, it's better to influence one person who can influence that 1 lakh. The cost will be lesser, the power would be better to reach, and who better than the CEO of a company? And then there was a surprising fact I found out through a search on the net when I started writing this book, that in India alone, there are officially, unofficially about 80 to 85 lakh CEOs. That's about 8.5 million CEOs. And the entire population of 135 crore population, in some way their livelihood is regulated through these people. And add to this the government heads, the other people, the bureaucracy. Every influencer is a potential CEO. When I say a CEO, this is not about someone who's holding an official post in an organization. And what is the change that we need to bring? Is it something which is going to be against making money? Obviously not. Without money, which is essential for us to move life, that is something which is needed. We have to find holding on to that one factor, the profit-making motive of any business. How do we transcend that while incorporating the basic values of making money, but making it in a better way, allowing people to transform, change, transform, and metamorphosis? This is the fundamental thought I had when I started writing the book. Of course, as I went through the writing of the book, several things happened, and I happened to make it better and better and better. And when Westland finally bought over the rights, I had already finished the first round of the manuscript. They found that this is the right time to launch because many people are not really in the know of how to handle a pandemic or the post-pandemic life in the world. The so-called new normal seems to have been imbibed in our thinking once and for all. I don't think ever we are going to get back to the so-called normal of pre-March 2020 in our lives ever. We need to have a hybrid model and maybe going forward look at several other things which we haven't done earlier. And that would include imbibing values which all along was only being given a lip service. If somebody is going to ask me a question by reading your book, will the world change? Maybe not. But it is my firm belief that the seeds of change has to be sown and people have to make efforts from their side. And this book is a very simple and humble effort in putting those thoughts across. And when people, in this time at least, people have enough free time. Somebody was asking me, why don't you delay launching of the book? Why don't you wait till the market is ready to buy the book when they will have? I said, this is the time when they have time. This is the time when you are shaken from your basic belief system is when you are ready to receive knowledge of a different kind. All along, this knowledge was available. It was available through our scriptures, through Quran, through Bible, through many of the messiahs, as we call, who have come over a period of time you are given. I have not done anything which is new or different. I have only packed all of them in a way in which will make it interesting for readers through the concept of storytelling from mythology and adding corporate. See, finally, if you're not going to make more profit at the end of the day, I don't think any CEO is going to be interested. I would call it growth instead of calling it profits. This book has a lot of concepts to make money and make better money, make better growth. In the process, imbibe certain values which will help people transform into their full potential, as maybe Abraham Maslow would say, go towards self-actualization. In the process, if the world can become a better place and a CEO can contribute, that was the driving force behind the book. This is the basis on which I have written and the book that is available right now in the market. There are, in fact, many organizations which have started asking me as an author to run this as a program. In fact, it's something that we already started doing. How to become a spiritual CEO is something that we have started doing. Maybe with this short introduction, I will open it to the panel of Shri Ambi Parameswaran and Shri Anil Kumar to take it forward and deep dive into the book further. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Prakash, for that wonderful backstory of the book and how you thought of the book and where we have come to today. So let me start by saying I thank MMA and Amazon Westland for inviting me to this panel discussion and play the role of a moderator. So I'm going to be speaking very little and I'm going to be requesting both Prakash and Anil to speak more because they are more qualified to talk about the concept, talk about the book. So we've heard Prakash give a background to the book and how it was born and how the book is very relevant, especially today. So now I switch to asking Mr. Anil Kumar, who is a banking veteran and an impact investing champion. He has won Social Entrepreneurship Award and runs Samunati as an open network for agribusiness for small farmers. Amazing work. I'm sure MMA will request you to do programs for them in the future on what your basic area of work is. But today I'm going to dig a little into what is mindfulness, meditation, and you probably embody what Prakash calls the spiritual CEO. So can you now get us in the journey of becoming what I call, or what Prakash calls, mindfulness, and how has it become so popular in the West suddenly, and is it something which drawn from our philosophies? So Anil, all yours.
Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to be part of this event as well as part of this conversation. I would consider this to be a blessing and once in a lifetime to be among such wonderful, accomplished people, both in the panel as well as in the audience. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. May I call you Ambi? Is that okay?
Yeah, please. That's why, I think, Prakash was calling me Shri Ambi Parameswaran Shri. I said, yaar, ye sab Shri bhi idhar nahi chahiye. We are all now, we emailed each other. We are all friends. So we call each other by first name. Like Group Captain Vijay Kumar calls me Ambi and I call him Vijay. So you can call me Ambi. So it's fine. Let's have it as a casual discussion. Yeah. Thank you.
That makes things more natural, I thought. Hence, I sought your permission. Thank you for that, Ambi. I will actually talk about the heartfulness than mindfulness, Ambi, because that's the system that I stumbled into in 1993 as a 21-year-old. More to address the bouts of migraine that I used to have as a 18-year-old, trying to figure out how do I deal with it. But then the heartfulness practice, which embodies meditation, the evening cleaning, and then the aspect of prayer, has changed the course of my life in a significant way. And if I can just map how the interesting modes, the crossroads that my life has taken, it's all thanks to the heartfulness practice. I left my engineering at the age of 18 and joined Canara Bank as a typist cum clerk in a rural branch. Then completed my graduation from Usmania University as a correspondent student, took all 3 years exam, and then moved to Hyderabad after 3.5 years in a rural setting to pursue my civil service dreams. So I enrolled into civil services coaching, and 10 to 5 was Canara Bank, and then 6 to 10 was coaching, and 10 to 3 was preparation. Then back to the office at 10 o'clock. So that rigor of about 1.5 years then finally let me land into the corporate world, ICICI Bank. So I'm the 442nd.
Did you crack the civil service exam?
Well, I did not. I just went for the prelims, but then the probationary officers that I wrote were the ones where I could crack. I got the direct recruit officer in Bank of India, and then grade A in RBI, so on and so forth. But then after joining ICICI Bank, well, it was a 15-16 hours a day kind of a learning experience. We used to love to be part of that, because where were the fully air-conditioned houses and fully air-conditioned offices at that point in time? I'm talking of 1994 and 1996 to be precise. So the life changed completely after joining ICICI Bank, but then leaving a government job for a person who left engineering because there was no backing and economic strength to continue, and take the plunge into a corporate world where the danger of losing a job was pretty high if we don't perform, is one milestone where the heartfulness meditation helped me go with the heart. And then I finished my MBA, and then became a branch manager. Life was cruising and everything was fine. Got married to a person whom I met in ICICI Bank. So I became a banker at the to the family as well, and a family to a banker, both ways. Did my MBA from Symbiosis, again from distance mode. Is when this bug came in saying everything is distance mode. Education, the graduation is distance mode, the post-graduation distance mode. How far can it take you? And the corporate karma that we'll talk about. If my karma is not good, somebody will overtake me, and will I survive in this world? And I was also a little disenchanted with the 16, 18-hour kind of a rigor, and I wanted to get into academics. Why don't I get into teaching? I felt that's an easier one. So I took my GMAT, took a sabbatical from my well-functioning or going career, and went to Manila to do my master's from Asian Institute of Management. That's the only full-time education that I had. And little did I realize that the academic world is much more fierce than the corporate world. At least in corporate world, you have the team to fall back on. In academic world, it is competing the mind with the mind. And if you don't mind, I was not being led by mind at that point. I was being led by the heart. So I said, hey, this is not the right place for me. Is when the autobiography of Dr. Muhammad Yunus came as part of my curriculum, and that said, hey, this is where my heart is. Maybe I should go back applying the domain expertise of banking to financial inclusion so that I can make millions of lives better if I am able to apply this. So again, followed the heart, came back to India and went into the corporate office of ICICI Bank to be the national head for a new team called Microfinance Institution Development Team. And also had a wonderful opportunity to work with the Deputy Managing Director, Dr. Nachiket Moore, who has been a mentor for me for about 9 years, from 2005 till 2014. Again, life was cruising, national head of a wonderful team in the corporate office, and then IFMR happened, the financial inclusion dimension. Am I there?
Yeah.
Okay. And till 2014, from 2007 till 2014, I was the CEO of IFMR Rural Channels, where we set up local financial institution model, which resemble the small finance banks now, from the scratch. And everybody were wondering, how can you build a new generation financial institution from the scratch with a set of people? And we went ahead and indeed created 6 such entities, and I was the group CEO for that. Is when 2014 I said, no, I should do something else, and Samunati happened as an accident. And that accident was by taking a loan on my house and my PF money, all put on one block, and that is to lend for agriculture. Lending for agriculture, again, is something that people were apprehensive about, because everybody knew that lending to farmers, rainfall failure, over indebtedness, extreme step, bad publicity, your money is gone. But then again, deep down the heart, we know that this indeed is the audience that we should be working for. And the conviction perhaps with which Samunati got explained, now we are a 7,000 crore company, net worth of about 505 crores. We operate in about 22 states. We work with about 800 farmer collectives with a collective membership base of about 5 million farmers. Close to 550 people work for Samunati, chugging along. So if I go back to all of this, these various crossroads that life has taken me, it's thanks to the investment that I got to make in the heartfulness meditation, where you are driven by heart, and when in doubt, refer to the heart has been the mantra. Go back. Logically, it may not make sense. Putting, after 20 plus years of service, putting whatever are the earnings into an idea where I'm the only promoter, and getting into agriculture where everybody was apprehensive about, doesn't explain logically. Leaving a government job, as I mentioned, get into private sector bank, leaving private sector bank, going for education at the age of 34, it doesn't explain. So thanks to heartfulness, I thought rather than giving a theoretical answer, I just share my life experience as to why this is meaningful to me, and why investment that I made, half an hour, 45 minutes a day, has been paying rich dividends to me.
So
thank you.
Thank you, Anil. And that was an amazing story about how you let your heart lead the way and not your mind, and also how, another thesis I've been working on, how you've been able to bounce back after every rejection. The failure in getting through IAS didn't bother you. You found something else. You found a new direction to go and explore, right? And then you've done so many very interesting things. All of them you're saying, at the backbone of that was the fact that you used heartfulness in all your key decision making. So thank you, Anil, for that wonderful narration of your story through examples on how you found new directions to go into. So now I want to go back to Prakash, and I want him to dig into his book and look at some interesting aspects of the book. And I think before I ask you to talk about corporate karma, I was going through this book called Conscious Capitalism, and I discovered there are a lot of parallels between what you're saying and what is said in Conscious Capitalism. But what I found also amusing is that I was listening to Ajay Banga's podcast 2 days ago, and he specifically said he doesn't like the word conscious capitalism, because he said conscious capitalism almost means that I'm making a bad word sound better. That capitalism is bad, so I'm putting conscious capitalism. Now capitalism is good, right? So I'm now going to ask Prakash to tell us about corporate karma and why is it important today. Corporate karma and why is it important today? Prakash, all yours.
I mean, it's not important today, but it has always been important. Say, for the Western mind, the word karma may not really appeal. For them, I have used even in the book the concept of cause and effect. Anything, even if you look at the creation itself, it happened long ago, but the effect is still happening. 15 billion years and counting. They still say that the universe is young. It is still growing. Such is the power of what we sow. This is my, I would say, submission based on my 25 years of understanding, working in the corporate world as coach, consultant, helping organizations to turn around. Every person who comes to the organization, to the table, brings with him a set of seeds, which goes as his baggage, plus minus combination of all. And all this changes the narrative. Many of the organizations I worked, they had wonderful products and services, but they've never been able to take off. And I've seen normal organizations with very normal product services who have really made it big. And when we go into the deeper aspects, as Anil said, it's very difficult to prove all these abstract concepts. I mean, today, after 15 billion years, we are still breaking ahead to prove God exists. I mean, supposedly a no-brainer to a theist and supposedly a no-brainer to an atheist also. Yet we are not able to prove because there are certain things which you will never be able to prove. You just have to go along. Karma is nothing but a concept of the baggages of thoughts, deeds, and actions that people have brought together in their path. In that process, in whatever they work collectively, they create some kind of a code into the missile's trajectory and its target and how it goes. Whether it's going to be a target which is going to get you millions of payloads or it's going to self-destruct its more or less return, though there is a possibility of changing. If you really pause and reflect, many times in our own lives, we can always say when something happens, for a second you ruminate back the way maybe Bhishma did in his deathbed. And Lord Krishna showed him how it happened 100 lives ago when by mistake he had been the cause of certain anguish to a snake, and he had to go through that to get rid of this. If that is true, if what we are going through is true, every successful individual I have met, every failed entrepreneur I have met, have a story to share as to why they believe that the success was not due to them, or the failed entrepreneur who says, in spite of however good I was, I don't know why I didn't succeed. The same is true. You are from an IIM batch. You have come so far in certain lines. Anil is, say, from from Manila, Philippines. I am from University of Madras. Each one of us have done similar degrees from several places. Why is it that you have taken a different path? I have taken a different path. Anil has taken a different path. Is it because of the conscious choices we have made, or is it because of a combination of choices in certain circumstances? Then how would you justify putting a seed in 3 different places and each of the seed growing differently because of the soil into which they are put? Karma is like a combination like that. If you ask me to prove it today, it's not possible. But if you want me to give circumstantial evidence, I can give hundreds of them based on people I have observed, people on organizations I have observed and worked with. Corporate karma, as I was sharing last week in another podcast I was doing, I told them that KQ or karma quotient is here to stay. 70 years ago, IQ was not accepted. And later it became the only measure of recruiting people till Daniel Goleman came and wrote about EQ. And then people are looking at psychometric tests to measure IQ and EQ together for about another 10, 15 years. And that was the way in which the people were elevated within the organization. Then SQ came about, which is spiritual quotient. How much compassionate you are, how much tolerant you are, how much you're able to forgive and things like that. I can tell you with certainty that in the next 3 to 5 years time, KQ or karma quotient will become a boardroom subject. It will be taboo for some time. People will laugh at you, but that's what has happened always for people who have always come and said, this is how the world has to go. And whatever I'm saying is not new. I'm only packaging again what has been said in all the religions, that what you sow, you have to reap. And karma quotient or corporate karma is something the corporate will have to be conscious. They are creating a playing field, and the playing field will have certain seeds and manure and certain equations. And if they consciously sow it, they can reap the benefit without having to face too much of a backlash. The same thing which happened to Lord Krishna when he caused Mahabharata and he was cursed by Gandhari to his death. And that was the price he had to pay, being the Lord himself. So karma, corporate karma is something that whether we accept or not, whether we accept God is there or not, it's there.
Great. So Prakash, I think that was wonderful. And you took us through this whole adaptability quotient, which you explained in your book, which is a combination of IQ, EQ, and SQ. Now I want to go to Anil, and I want to ask him about something which is there in the book, which is spiritual alchemy process. So I want, and somewhere Prakash has very nicely written about the 9 avatars of Vishnu, and he has kind of compared it to corporate CEOs, and now what we can learn from those 9 avatars and how we need to change. So do you want to come in and say a little bit about that?
Ambi, as I was listening to Prakash on corporate karma and putting my hat as the CEO, and then the various forms that the Almighty had to take to redeem us from whatever we are going through. Doing the duty without expecting result for a CEO sounds very it's paradoxical, right? We have to indeed subscribe to the plans. We have to give the milestones, goal setting, performance appraisal process, and then the variable pay linked to what you have achieved finally, right? And how can you build the culture of not running behind the numbers? I stumbled upon this wonderful concept called obliquity, OBLIQUITY, which talks about how goals are best handled when pursued indirectly. And putting that as the dimension, what this term talks about is you have to be clear as to what is the purpose of your existence as an organization. For example, Samunnati's purpose of existence is to make markets work for smallholder farmers. That is cast in stone. That is a purpose why we exist as an organization. In doing so, what are the strategies that you adopt? How do you make sure that there is sustainability? How do you make sure that this purpose is achieved at scale is what, in my view, is the corporate karma. As a CEO, you have the deliverables to be made. You have the people that you have to inspire for, but not losing the sight of who you are as an organization, going back to why do you exist in terms of an entity, and align all the other milestones to that is an important dimension. So whenever a new senior person joins the Samunnati family in the journey, we basically tell him that, listen, you are like a Navavadhu. You are the new bride which has come to this family, and this family has its own idiosyncrasies. Samunnati family has its own dimensions, its own the seeds of corporate karma that Prakash mentioned about. We function the way we function, and you are the person who is joining this journey. And the first few weeks, please make sure that you don't find fault with what we are doing currently, because that's the way things are, and that is what brought Sammunati to where we are today. And basis where we are today is how you are joining this journey to take us to the next level. So take all of what you are seeing in Sammunati from the dimension of this is what people could have done the best given the circumstances, because we are indeed an entity where we don't have an answer, we don't have an example to look for, to learn from. We are a unique organization. So there is a lot of learning that happens while pursuing the mission.
No, but Anil, just to come in, as a CEO, you have to run a company based on KPIs, right? So I don't deliver my number and I tell you, sir, mera karma utna hi hai, sir. Correct. Don't blame me. My karma is a problem.
Correct.
How do you handle that?
So the alignment is to the mission, and if your karma is not to further our mission, is there a way where we can assign it to some other job which is aligned to the karma, or I can refer you to some other place where your alignment happens. So it does not take away the responsibility of delivering the results to the stakeholders of Sammunati.
Great. So
all that it does is we don't lose the point of purpose for the KPIs. KPIs are the outcomes of the purpose.
Great. So thank you, Anil. I think you also harked on the existence of a company. Why? What Simon Sinek talks about, right? Starting with why. So if the entire organization knows why they exist, then a lot of the what and the how can follow without a problem.
Yep.
Correct, exactly. So wonderful. So thank you. Let me now go to Prakash. And he talks about corporate DNA in the book. And I think there is a nice story he narrates about Yudhishthira and the dog. In fact, I was reading Wendy Doninger's book on Hinduism just yesterday, and that same incident has been repeated by her in many parts of the book. So can you tell us about how do you build an organizational DNA around spirituality? And can you also tell the viewers about the dog and why he followed Yudhishthira and what happened to him?
Yeah, maybe I'll also touch upon the earlier question, which is partly to be answered on spiritual alchemy, which is a very interesting subject as well.
Please.
And connect back to the DNA and the dog story.
Yeah, please.
That will bring it to the full circle. Many of us must have read this bestseller, which came 25 years ago by Paul Coelho on The Alchemist, where you turn a metal into gold and things like that. It's all about the metamorphosis of something lower into something higher. This is what maybe Abraham Maslow said 70 years ago when he spoke about moving from survival needs to the highest of self-actualization needs. This is what maybe Stephen Covey said when he said, we are all spiritual beings born with a human experience. But if we continue to just be and only at the level of a human experience, when we are going to transcend and go back to the level from where we actually descended, if you are all finally creations of God, as maybe Ramanujacharya would say, Atma and Paramatma, when are we actually finally going to get that purpose and transform? That's where, in fact, in the book, I use the story of the egg to the transformation to the caterpillar to the butterfly. This is something possible. If a person joins you as an executive and he continues to be an executive throughout his life and retires as a clerk or whatever, would you be happy as a CEO? See, every CEO's today KPIs include spotting potential succession planning candidates and nurturing them and grooming them and bringing them forward. And all of us have worked in corporates where when we specifically do succession planning, we are not looking at the ability of the person to only churn numbers. We look at how he would take the organization 30, 40, 50 years from now. What would be his vision? What would be his values? And for an alchemy to happen, that inner transformation must happen in that executive. And that's where the spiritual DNA comes in. Spiritual DNA is nothing but a set of values that the organization, see, last 20 years, every corporate house at least has been talking about purpose over profit. Whether they do it or not is a big question. But paradigm shifts do not always happen overnight. A spiritual DNA is when people are, see, I've also written in the book in the 3rd or 4th chapter about lead indicators and lag indicators. Your KPIs and KRAs are all lag indicators, whereas your lead indicator, what do I have to do? I don't have to worry about the lag indicators, which is what has happened. And there, if I'm guided by values, if I turn up every day, day in and day out, I am true to my conscience. I go by values. Today, many of the IIMs run courses on ethics and morality. Why would they do that if they don't want people to follow? It's a difficult concept. There is always a conflict that when you have to make profits, any means would justify the end, which is not necessary. I have quoted the examples of Premjis and so many people in the book who have, at least to the best of their ability, lived by certain guiding values. See, spirituality, many of us confuse and mix it with unnecessarily religion. We all think spirituality is all about the process towards going towards God. Maybe yes, at the highest level. At the lowest level in this book, I speak about 3 things which would make an organization follow spiritual DNA, which is what I call as the triple bottom line, which is nothing but every person has a right, as US Constitution would say. In the spiritual parlance, they say you have a right to be peaceful, you have a right to be happy, and you have a right to your own growth as you deem fit. Your growth and my growth need not be the same, but if it aligns to the corporate growth, to the global growth, while keeping everyone peaceful and happy. See, today there is a thin line you draw on a map and call it one side as one country, the other side as another country, and you are lost to your peace forever. Whereas Carl Sagan, when he traveled outside as an astronaut, he saw the Earth only as a blue dot, nothing else. Such a beautiful blue dot, but when you get in, there is so much of bloodshed. All that has happened because as CEOs of the country, as CEOs, as kings, they lost that entire humanity is part of us. Colors, race, caste, creed, sex cannot distinguish, should not allow us to discriminate. It is a lofty goal, but surely doable. This is what every big leader has strived to work under. This is the mission of UN itself. This is the mission of many great leaders who have done. So spiritual DNA is about imbibing values without losing the goal of corporate goals. Triple bottom line, you all know about the people, planet, profit, the 3 Ps. The spiritual bottom line takes it a little bit ahead. Peace, happiness, and growth. My growth goal could be different from yours, but I should peacefully coexist while pursuing that goal. As Anil beautifully said, if that growth doesn't match with the organizational growth, you must be allowed to go ahead and do it. If you're a hockey player, you can't be in a cricket team. If you are there, I have to tell you, please, the hockey team is next door, go and play that. If that happens, then the concept of finally, if you look at the concept of dog that you asked, see, Dharma, what Krishna defines is that which upholds the universe. And Yudhishthira's dharmic value was never to let down anyone or anything who was part of him. And when he crossed the threshold, the only person who was allowed to go in the human form into the other side of the world, you had to lose your body to move into the next dimension. He had the power to move into the next dimension with his human body. And this dog, which was nothing else than Dharma, Lord Dharma, who came to test him, he said, if the dog cannot come, I cannot come. That is my dharma. If the CEO says, if my people don't progress, I don't progress. Imagine what kind of a transformation may happen. See, today these all might sound altruistic, but I believe over a period of time, without losing the fundamental role that business is meant for to make profit, we can still make meaning out of life. This pandemic has taught us, and that's what I believe is possible from this.
Thank you, Prakash. I think that was a great explanation on being a spiritual CEO and how you can imbibe a bit of spirituality into the company. And having worked in an Indian company which became a multinational, it's always a problem to explain some of these human values to American bosses. The first thing American boss tells you is, You're not going to meet your number. What are you going to do about the headcount? You have to cut your headcount, right? So it is one of the things which we used to do, which is we will never sack anyone who cannot find a job. So invariably, whoever you let go is someone who can easily find a job sooner or later. So even when we digitized our entire studio, more than 100 people across the country, all these artists did not know how to touch a computer. They were all good old artists who used to use blade and cut and do that. And we spent money training them and getting them to use the computer and become DTP artists, whereas several other agencies just laid them off, laid the whole studio off. So I think it comes from the heart, what you said, that what do you care for your people seriously, and can you live by that? And so it's very easy to say my head office tells me that I should sack so many people, or a head office tells me I should cut this. But the challenge is to say, look, no, I stand for these values, and I will not allow this to happen. And I think, and I hope that your book inspires a lot of CEOs to take that call to say, look, these are the values which I bring to the table. These are the values I've put into my organization. Therefore, we will live by that. In fact, I don't know whether you're aware that one of the earliest business schools to talk of human values was IIM Calcutta. Under S.K. Chakraborty, they set up this Center for Human Values. And he was my professor. He used to teach us management by objectives, and we were recently discussing this aspect with an American scholar who's writing a book, saying, look, it was way out of its time. It was 1992, when business schools only taught you one mantra, which was profit, right? Everything else can be sacrificed, because the circular argument was that if you make profits, you'll pay people well, you'll reward your shareholders, therefore you will create economy, you'll create economic growth, etc., etc. But in the process of creating only a profit-driven organization, you're going to be running over a lot of people who are lying in the pavement, maybe. And like you said, corporate karma, the poor fellow's movie flopped yesterday, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So he ran over. I mean, he didn't run over an auto-driven, a car which was automatically driving, self-driven car ran over some poor payment sleepers in Bandra, and they died, and very sad. But anyway, we are digressing. So let me come to the last question. I think, Anil, with your permission, I want to ask Prakash the last question, and then we'll throw it open to the audience. So, Prakash, since we have a lot of Tamil audience here, Vashishtar Vayala Brahma Rishi Pattam is something which I've heard, being said. But in your book, I discovered how it happened. That the whole thing about what is the importance of Vashishtar Vayala Brahma Rishi? அது கொஞ்சம் ஸ்டோரியை கொஞ்சம் சொல்லுங்க, நல்லா இருக்கும்.
You want me to say it in Tamil or?
இல்ல வேண்டாம். I think Anil, you understand fluent Tamil or you're okay? தமிழ்ல சொன்னா சொல்லுங்க, நல்லா இருக்கும். விஜய், with your permission, தமிழ்ல சொல்லலாமா கதை?
We have Indian audience from all over the world, so we'll speak
okay.
Bilingual is okay. Tamil and English mix is okay. Pure Tamil may not.
So Vashishtar Vayala. Okay, good. That's why I asked you. So Vashishtar Vayala Brahma Rishi means getting called a Brahma Rishi from the mouth of Vashishta, who's supposed to be the biggest Rishi among all the Rishis of Indian pantheon. So Prakash, over to you.
Yeah, it's about the transformation process that our Vishwamitra sought about. And when he initially met Vasishta, and he was fascinated by the cow that he had, which could give everything that he wanted, he was never able to defeat. And repeatedly went on wars, and he kept on banging his head against, and he was never able to win. And finally understood that there is something beyond that he could see, and he found out that his powers came from a much higher level, and which came from his spiritual attainments of the highest order, which made him maybe the only celestial Brahma Rishi of all times. And he wanted that badly. And this set off a chain of change, transformation, metamorphosis, which lasted apparently about 20,000 years. And when he finally thought he had reached there, Vasishtha was still not ready to give him. He put him through the final test, which was what we call for CEOs the ultimate insult, to be humble. He said, without humility, you can never be a Brahmarishi. And that is not something that is easy for a CEO. And specifically, people are standing there to open the door of a car, saluting you, and drooling over you to give you all kind of compliments, because they know finally you are the ones who are going to give the pay rise and the checks. And we have this bloated ego which comes. This is what happened to, because he was able to create this Trishanku out, and he could create a separate Surga for him. It kept on making him think that he is the greatest of all, which Vasishtha wanted to say that unless you are grounded and humble, which is one of the very few qualities which are of the highest order, which a CEO finds it difficult to pick up. He teaches him by making his own daughter go through such a crisis, which is a daughter born between him and Menaka. And she falls in love, Nala, then he forgets, and finally has to go and touch his feet before the memory comes back. And that's when finally he calls him Brahmarishi, and that's what we call, to be called a Brahmarishi by Vasishtha. And to be called finally a CEO by someone who's well grounded, saying that you are humble, for you it's beyond money, you really value being. Finally, we all land up in that 7/3 mess, whether we like it or not. And that hyphen that is coming between a date of birth and date of death, is it going to be such a drama that we need to play it out with such ferocious force and all that? These are the values which come through in this example of. I would also like to ask you a question, Ambi. What is your take on this book? If you had to say it in about a few sentences, because you have been putting questions and asking us. I would like to ask you, you have read the book. Please share your insights.
Yeah, so thank you. I think, I think the book was a very, very interesting ride through Indian mythology, Indian philosophy, and the way it linked those to what is very relevant in today to be a CEO. A CEO, you used a metaphor. I'm saying any business leader. I mean, I'm running a small shop, I'm running a small restaurant, I'm a CEO of my business. How do you bring spirituality into it? And you've done that by using a lot of, like I said, some of the stories I knew before I read the book, but some of them were actually very new to me. And I had to go back and, kind of cross-reference to other books. So I think it's an easy read, but it's a heavy read. So whoever is thinking of reading it should read it slowly and savor it and go back to it and revisit it. So that's my take on your book, Prakash. So I hope you're okay with that. And
now put it to question answers.
Yeah, captain. I think now we should open up. Vijay, there's some Mr. Narasimhan put up his hand. He had a question.
We request them to put the question in the chat box. No, Narasimhan, he will do that actually. And in fact, he put up the hand. I asked him, he was appreciative of that comment what you made that time. So he was he was appreciating. I think we have got it's a fascinating conversation, and it's really nice to listen to different views from the CEOs, especially Ambi. You dealt with so many CEOs, so you know what is actually the corporate karma and many of the large organizations which you have witnessed as a brand consultant or even as independent director. But you really never shared what exactly. You really brought it out very nicely. There is a very thin line divides between the expectations of the stakeholders vis-a-vis the corporate karma. That's very beautiful. And all the audience who are watching this program, I think we have got over 900 people are watching this program live from various social media portals, Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, live, our webcast, and also Twitter, and also radio, MMA, Voice of MMA. 900 is a good number for the people to watch. It's a subject which I mentioned attracts very spiritual CEOs, really a subject what you really mentioned. It's very, very difficult for the people to understand, assimilate, and they think it's something for CEOs, but still the 900 is a very big number. We also got a number of questions which has come from YouTube, Facebook, and I request all the viewers watching the program, please do share your question, as we already done some of you, and also put your question in the chat box. Maybe Ambi would like to handle the chat box, or you want me to read the questions from the chat
No,
box?
I can do
Yeah.
the chat box.
Chat box. Yes, I will handle the YouTube, Facebook, and other medium which has already come to me actually. Okay.
So we have time for about another 10 minutes.
Yes,
We are supposed to close at 7.
Sound
but
15.
I think,
Sound 15.
yeah, 7:15. We'll go on till 7:15. So I think, Prakash, I think the question which I think is coming from Suresh Krishnamurthy is something which is going through probably everyone's mind. How do you balance profitability and spirituality? I mean, people tend to see these as bipolar. Just as when people get introduced to management grid, which is people orientation and task orientation, the initial thing is, how can you have both? If you're people oriented, you can't be task oriented. If you're task oriented, you can't be people oriented. So tell us, how can you be profit oriented and spirituality oriented? Prakash.
Yeah, instead of telling a direct answer, I used a story in this of my experience about 10 years back with an executive in an organization whom I was coaching. So I asked him, will you be happy with a raise at any cost? He said, I'll be very happy with any raise that you give. I'm ready to do anything. So I asked him, I'll give you double the pay what you're currently getting. I was not his boss, but I was coaching him. But all I will do is at the end of the day, I'll just slap you once in front of everyone. Is it okay? So no, it's not possible. I would rather forego that additional pay instead of getting a slap in front of everyone. I said, okay, I'll give that pay and I'll give you that respect you need. Is it all you need? He said, yeah, that's all I need. It's okay. Imagine you go back, your wife has left and gone. Would you be happy with that? No. How is it possible? A pay raise, all that cannot make up for me losing a spouse. I said, fine, all this is fine. I'll give you your spouse back. You will have your pay, you will have your respect, but you will not have any further growth in this organization into the future, though we'll get a pay raise. Is it okay? I said, no, I need growth. I have to be recognized as a leader. And the conversation went on and on. I captured in the book. The same thing happens to us. Everybody who's part of the stakeholder, who's a stakeholder in the organization, you're looking beyond. See, when rich people say money doesn't make sense, we all tend to believe. When a pauper says it, we don't. Likewise, I have dealt with several CEOs who used to come and say at the age of 60, 65 when I retired, Prakash, I think I could have done a better job of balancing both. The people below me were miserable. It is possible that you can multiply yourself. At the level of a CEO, I don't think it's too difficult for you to manage two of, after all, this is what spirituality teaches, balancing a material and spiritual wing and being successful in both. There are great leaders from our own times who have done all this. I've quoted all the references in the book. Actually speaking, the better your spiritual quotient is, in fact, I have seen the way Arjuna had help from Lord Krishna without lifting one single arrow, but the victory was ensured the moment God was on his side. The same way when you develop spiritual values, there are people who pray. The same is true of one of the former CMs of Tamil Nadu. Out of deathbed, he came out twice by the sheer effect of prayer, of millions praying for him. Whether it was right, wrong, great leader or not is different. But he had karma going his way because there were people who were ready to do that. And actually speaking, the way people think it is, it's not a difficult do. Both are easily doable. And Anil is a classic example. I'm sure you have done the same thing. I'm sure Group Captain Vijay Kumar does the same thing. We may not know it. I'm giving it a name. When I say, when you read the book in detail, the readers who are watching, they'll relate and say, hey, this is what I've been doing all along. So I am spiritual. So it's not that I'm telling you something new. I'm only giving it a name, but giving you the list of things. When you do, you become spiritual.
Great.
Are you allowing people to be peaceful, happy, and grow? You are a spiritual person.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you.
We got.
In fact, Group Captain Nick, I need to just answer another question. What prompted you to write this book? Mr. Rajagopal is asking, and I think that has been answered.
Yes.
He's given the background.
And
I think someone has asked, Mr. Rajagopal has asked, yes, the book is available on Amazon. It's available both as Kindle and as a hard copy. I don't know whether Amazon is delivering, but I think you can place the order and they'll start delivering whenever the lockdown rules are being reduced.
Correct.
Okay, now I hand over to Group Captain Vijay Kumar to ask some questions. I think
Yeah.
he's very.
We got
anxious to
a
ask.
number of questions in this Facebook and YouTube. I only request you, it's a rapid question. So you try and
sure.
answer so that we can accommodate as many questions as possible.
Sure.
Here's a question from Gopal Krishnan from Mysore. We are all raised in an academic world where individual grades were critical to our success. How does an employee shift from the mindset of a competition for advancements to spiritual mindedness of what good for ill, which you have been really propagating in your book, that as he understands?
It is possible to throw the old baggages out and develop new paradigm the way the pandemic has taught, sir. Rapid fire rounds, I am restricting to short answers.
So, yeah, good. Because so that I can accommodate so many people asking questions, I don't want to disappoint them.
Please.
Here's again Raghuram from Chennai. He wants to know, many corporate leaders are hesitant to speak of spirituality at all within the workplace due to religious implications and all legal ramifications may result. How can this issue be addressed, and what's your experience of dealing with so many leaders from your organization where you have mentioned you're dealing with a number of them because of your position, what you are holding at the moment?
I have already explained it in the conversation. The stigma of associating with religion has to be broken, which has been broken in the book. It's about value system. It's not about religion or search of God.
Great, sir. One last question before I give it back to Ambi to take questions, some of the questions which has come in the chat box. Is a Christopher from Pondicherry. What he wants to know, how do you overcome the challenge of working in a workplace where spiritual principles are not valued or practiced?
Be true to yourself. Chase your dream, irrespective of who says no. I'm sure the end of the tunnel, you will see the light. This is what I have seen. This is what many people in the panel have seen. Go for it. Don't give up your dream.
Ambi, maybe one or two questions before I close with one or two questions.
Yeah, thank you. I think in India, especially, we tend to confuse spirituality with religiosity. These two are very different concepts. And unfortunately, in India, we also mistake religiosity for ritualistic religiosity. So, we are a bit too committed to ritualism than religion, and we are a little too committed to religion than to spirituality. You can still do puja in your office, but you can bring everyone into the puja, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? And we were a multinational, we're an American multinational, but we used to have a Lakshmi puja, where everyone, including the Christians and the Muslims, are working in the company, were there. All of us used to do the prayer together. All of us used to eat prasad. We used to celebrate Christmas. Santa Claus used to come and give gifts. So you got to make sure don't become religion equals spirituality. Spirituality, like what Prakash said, spirituality is something bigger, something more. And Prakash, there's some slightly heavy question. I don't know how you're going to give a rapid fire answer to this.
I will, don't worry.
So let me read it out and you can structure your answer in a Twitter size. So Anirudh is asking, sir, as per Mahabharata, Lord Krishna said, for good thing of people you can cheat or lie. Everyone knows Mahabharata, where Lord Krishna will cheat and start the war one day prior. So similarly, can a CEO do an act which might affect the employee now, but will be result in good for the same employee in the future?
See, if you define a value and live by it, cheating is a value, if you understand, everybody understands, that's your defined value. Define a value, live by it.
Okay, good. So thank you. Mr. Ganeshan, KV Ganeshan asking, we are in the business of owners in small scale. We are following our own way of approaching things. Can you suggest how to find out we are in the spiritual mindset?
Very simple answer, sir. At the end of the day, when you go to the bed, is your conscience clear? Your people's conscience is clear. You are spiritual. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, as they say, a soft pillow in the night is a clear conscience going to sleep. So yeah. Thank you. Vishnunathan Vaidyanathan says Mahatma Gandhi was a true spiritual leader. Is his style suitable for a CEO?
You choose your own style, sir. Everyone has their own style. Find what will help you to make profit for your business while maintaining values which will keep you grounded.
Thank you, Prakash. I think we are
We'll take Ambi. I still have 5 more minutes. I will try and squeeze in a couple of questions because we'll try. You're not in a hurry, no, Ambi?
You ask.
So I'm used to Twitter responses. So for me, anything I can bring it down to 256
just
characters.
Tell Vishnu, no, Gandhi. There's a lovely book on Gandhi as CEO. You must read that book. It's a lovely book.
Yeah.
And here's a question to Mr. Anil Kumar. He says, a spiritual goal may be fully to develop employees, allowing and building upon a creativity of an individual. An organizational goal is usually to deliver product on time and within the budget. If individual is not mastering the organizational goal fast enough, how does one stay connected to the spiritual goal? Because you mentioned in your talk that if the guy is not aligning to the spiritual goal, what you have done, you told them you can put it, align himself to the goal, which he is doing. But maybe you would like to elaborate on that.
Right. There are 2 dimensions to the product. One is the creating the product, which is a creation process. Second is deploying the product, which is a sales process. As they say, sales and marketing. Sales is execution, marketing is creation. Where, leaders will have to play a role based on my 30 years of handling people. Vijay, is can you identify if this person is a creative person or an execution person? If the person is creative person, link him to a creativity-led job, which is the marketing. Person is a sales-led person, put him in sales because that is where they will thrive. For example, in the senior management of Samunati, there are a couple of leaders who handle large portfolios, but they don't like ambiguity. They are not in the creative zone. They are part of the sales, business, operations, administration, so that's where they revel. So this matching the profile to the job is an important dimension. If that is not possible, you don't have a role for that person, then be a spiritual CEO, go and request, can you please go somewhere else? I will help you.
Okay, great, sir. With the chairman's permission, Ambi, I'll squeeze in 2 more last questions before we close. Here's a question from Mr. Again, Rajaratnam from Tanjavur. What's the difference between spirituality and mindfulness or meditation? Or gratitude and forgiveness within the spiritual context different from the same virtue or secular context? He also added another question. What is the difference between mindfulness and meditation?
To put both answers together, sir, there are the old quote, like all roads might lead to Rome. There are multiple paths toward the same goal. What might be spiritual to me may not be spiritual to you, but you will have your own values, systems with which you will run. As long as being spiritual is concerned, if a path is clear, go ahead and choose it and run for it.
Great, sir. Really, really a Twitter-type answer. One last question for the evening. How do I, this is a question again from Mr. Ramakrishnan from Chennai. How do I, as a leader, balance both sides of success, materialism and spiritualism? And he also added 2 more sub-questions to this. Where do you think the current leaders lack? Could you name one factor that makes a person a leader? How vital is it? This is the last question for the evening. And maybe on this question, maybe I request other panelists also share their views.
In fact, I would request Ambi to answer this question because he has a much wider experience in this.
What was the question, Vijay?
You got off guard, no, Ambi? Well, just a moment. No, I'll just go to that WhatsApp SMS. Is there. He says, how do I, as a leader, balance both sides of success, materialism and spiritualism? He also added as a sub-question, where do you think the current leaders lack? And could you name one factor that makes a person a leader? How vital is it?
I think what I would tend to agree with what Anil spoke about, which is leading from the heart. Always profit is not the only objective you have to go and work towards. If you remember when the pandemic started, I think 2 or 3 business groups announced that we will not cut salaries, we will not cut any jobs, right? I mean, that is the power of a leader who's leading with a spiritual heart. Now, I know that everyone can't do it. Everyone will not be able to do it. You will have to, some people will have to cut salaries, some people have to let people go, but by letting some people go, you can save more jobs. Then you need to do it in a way that you can go to sleep at night. So I'm saying, remember, a soft pillow is the best conscience keeper you can hire. So as long as in your heart you think you are doing the right thing, In your heart, you think what you're doing is best and you're staying true to your core values, go ahead and do it. Profit is not a dirty word. All of us need profit in order to pay salary, in order to pay dividend. Profit is not a dirty word. I don't think that was what was implied by Mr. Anil Kumar or Mr. Prakash. No, it is not. But they're saying you need to have a balance between profits, employees, environment, society. It's a balance. And being a spiritual CEO helps you balance all these different pulls and pushes and to rise even higher. So, Vijay, thank you very much for the opportunity, for being here and getting grilled by you. Mr. Prakash, thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful book. And I thoroughly enjoyed the book. And Mr. Anil Kumar, thank you very much for joining us today to share your fantastic career journey. We all learned so much from both Prakash and from Mr. Anil Kumar today. So thank you, Vijay, for giving me the opportunity, for joining all of them to participate in this terrific discussion. And thank you for accepting a guy like me who spent all my life in advertising and marketing to be worthy of this panel. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambi. And it's a fascinating evening. And as usual, we brought the best out of speakers, especially the author. But this is the subject where everybody will understand spirituality and how, and during the present situation, what we are facing, not only the spirituality, the empathy and care for others, all these are really required when these conditions where you have to help each other come out of the human, egoism and help people. And one way what we are trying to do MMA is bring out as many programs as possible, keep your mind engaged. And I would like to really thank Mr. Prakash for choosing to come and discuss the theme.
Thank you.
God will continue to engage yourself because it's a great, really an inspiration for MMA to do a lot of events with you, and our members get really inspired. Ambi, as usual, it's always fantastic to get connected to you. And stay safe and stay healthy. Say hello to everybody, all our good friends at Mumbai. Anil, good to get connected to you, and we'll keep in touch with you. And we are going to request you to come and speak your success story, which is very inspiring. There'll be large number of people waiting at the rings, really sitting on the wall benches to really take a decision whether to do it or not to do it. They may really get inspired after listening to you to really take on to the social entrepreneurship, which is very good. As a token of our appreciation, all the viewers are watching the program, more than 1,000 plus. We would like to present to the speakers who are really supported by what we are today. This is what we do. We present to them 300 face masks on your behalf and also under mini sanitizer. Our team goes around, give to the people, because till everybody gets vaccinated, we thought this is a small way MMA can really help the people to stay away from the situation what's happening today. And my humble request to all the viewers watching this program, and also tell your people, impress upon them, you have to stay safe, stay healthy, and follow all the protocols what we are being advised to you. Don't listen to so many in fact, best don't see WhatsApp. That really confuses a lot of you. And keep watching MMA program, keep reading MMA magazine articles, and listen to some good quiz program what we are bringing it to you. Thank you so much. Till we meet again on 24th. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night. Till we meet again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.
See you, Ambi. Bye-bye.